Tonight, classic rock fans are remembering one of the founding members of the band, the Eagles. Randy Meisner died last night in Los Angeles.
Randy Meisner's soaring voice once propelled the Eagles to legendary status, yet his final years were shrouded in silence and solitude. What caused the quiet fall of a man whose high harmonies shaped rock history? Behind the hits and melodies lies a story of personal battles, bitter band tensions, and heartbreaking losses that few truly understand. When Meisner passed away at 77, the music world mourned, but Don Henley's delayed response shocked fans. His first words broke years of silence and hinted at a complicated bond with one of rock's most reserved geniuses. Randy Meisner's rise. Randy Meisner's name may not be the first to come to mind when thinking about the Eagles, but his role in the band's success was nothing short of essential. From the earliest days, his distinctive high harmonies gave life to some of the group's most unforgettable songs, including classics like Take It Easy and Take It to the Limit. His voice carried an emotional depth that connected with millions. Yet Meisner himself remained quietly in the background, never craving the spotlight. This modesty concealed a complex reality. He was a foundational presence whose contributions were frequently overshadowed by bandmates with larger personalities. Many fans remember the soaring falsetto during Take It to the Limit as Randy's signature moment, a vocal performance that pushed emotional and musical boundaries. Yet behind that soaring voice was a man who preferred to let the music speak, avoiding the fierce ambitions and internal politics that often defined the band's dynamic. His presence was felt more through the resonance of his bass lines and harmonies than through public recognition. His understated style belied a profound influence on the Eagles' sound, helping define the country rock fusion that set the group apart in the 1970s. But Meisner's path with the Eagles was not always smooth. Though he co-founded the band with Glenn Frey, Don Henley, and Bernie Leadon, his status compared to Frey and Henley was never equal. Both Frey and Henley were dominant forces, assertive, ambitious, and willing to take control, while Meisner remained more interested in the music itself than in jockeying for power or creative control. Over time, this imbalance grew, and Meisner found himself marginalized, his ideas overlooked, and his role diminished. In recording sessions, Meisner often had to accept decisions that went against his instincts. He co-wrote several Eagles songs, but had little influence on which tracks made it to the albums or who would lead the vocals on singles. This lack of agency took a personal toll, as the excitement of creating music was overshadowed by feelings of exclusion from the decision-making that shaped the band's direction. What began as harmonious collaboration slowly gave way to simmering frustrations. At the height of the Eagles' fame, Meisner's contributions extended beyond vocals. His bass playing carried the rhythmic foundation that helped the band blend rock with country elements in a way that felt fresh, yet accessible. Yet his quiet demeanor kept him out of the spotlight when it came to interviews and public appearances, leaving many unaware of how integral he was to the band's character. Behind the scenes, though, his musical presence was a steady anchor for the group's evolving sound. This complicated relationship between Meisner and his bandmates set the stage for significant challenges that would test the bonds of friendship and collaboration. External success increasingly masked internal discord, and the tension simmering beneath the surface became harder to contain as fame grew larger and demands increased. Meisner's quiet resilience contrasted sharply with the band's more assertive members. Despite all this, his voice remained a defining feature of the Eagles' identity. Songs that bear his unmistakable falsetto continue to evoke raw feeling and yearning, resonating with audiences decades later. Yet, the complexity of his role and his eventual departure hinted at deeper struggles that would unfold publicly years later. Behind every great band is a complex backstory. and Randy's early life set the tone for the struggles and passions that would shape his career. Early career and influences. Randy Meisner's roots trace back to an unassuming beginning on March 8, 1946, in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. A small farming town where music felt worlds away from the vast fields and quiet nights. His family's work in fruit farming demanded dedication and patience, yet music found a mysterious way into Randy's soul from an early age. Through crackling radios, he absorbed the sounds of Elvis Presley, Little Richard, and the Everly Brothers, not just as a listener, but as a young creator, eager to find his own voice. As a teenager, he began experimenting with the guitar before ultimately switching to bass, a shift he later described as finding his true rhythm. The bass wasn't simply an instrument to Randy, it was a connection, the backbone that kept the music running smoothly. This sense of responsibility and subtlety in his musicianship distinguished him from others chasing the spotlight. His resolve to pursue music led him to leave Nebraska, stepping into the bustling Los Angeles scene in the 1960s. Los Angeles, with its crowded bars and cutthroat music industry, offered both a paradise and a proving ground for aspiring musicians. Meisner arrived with little more than his bass guitar and an unrelenting hunger to succeed. Through a string of smaller bands and scattered gigs, he gradually established himself. But it wasn't until joining Poco, a pioneering country rock band, that he began to gain significant attention. Poco represented more than just a band. It was a movement that experimented with blending country sounds into rock. Meisner's soaring vocals and steady bass helped shape Poco's distinctive sound, contributing emotional depth and musical structure. Yet just as their first album neared release, internal conflicts surfaced, and Meisner abruptly left, leaving the music world wondering about the potential left unrealized. Meisner gained essential performance skills with Rick Nelson's Stone Canyon Band, which he joined shortly after. Meisner developed professional discipline through Nelson's exacting standards, which taught him how to sustain a successful career. The time period allowed him to establish stronger bonds with fans while developing his musical skills, which he viewed as his life's purpose. Meisner had not yet discovered his authentic professional identity, even though he was developing new abilities and receiving fresh career chances. The year 1971 brought him together with Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and Bernie Leadon to serve as Linda Ronstadt's backup musicians. The four musicians discovered an excellent musical connection, which they developed into their new band, which would become the Eagles, the group that created a new country rock sound. Poco served as a testing ground which the Eagles transformed into their complete musical work, which brought their sound to greater levels. Meisner maintained his role as one of the band's key vocal performers because his voice brought special characteristics which most listeners failed to recognize because they preferred to listen to Henley and Frey. The conditions existed for band members to develop complicated relationships because each member pursued their own personal goals. Randy's early career foundation shows his musical greatness together with his personal struggles, which became his defining characteristics. His story shows the tension between humble artistry and the harsh realities of fame in the music industry. The delicate dynamics within the band would soon intensify, revealing tensions that would define Meisner's experience with the Eagles. Band dynamics and tensions. To outsiders, the Eagles' seamless harmonies and chart-topping success painted the picture of a tightly knit band at the height of its powers. But beneath the surface, the inner workings of the group were fraught with friction and divergent ambitions. From the moment Meisner joined, his temperament and priorities set him apart from Glenn Frey and Don Henley. Whereas Frey was a natural leader driven by ambition and control, and Henley was sharp, intelligent, and ready to assert authority, Meisner sought only to play music without being embroiled in politics or competition. This fundamental difference became a source of ongoing tension. Despite helping forge the band's sound and success, Meisner was never granted equal status within the group's hierarchy. His input was often overridden, and during recording sessions, he found himself compelled to acquiesce to decisions he didn't fully support. His restrained nature made him less vocal, contributing to a sense of marginalization compared to his more forceful bandmates. As the Eagles' fame skyrocketed throughout the 1970s, Meisner's influence and role in the band gradually diminished. The group's business and creative decisions increasingly reflected the visions and desires of Frey and Henley. Meisner's contributions, though significant, became sidelined, fueling a growing sense of alienation. He felt less like a member of a collaborative team and more like an outsider forced to align with others' plans. These dynamics were particularly difficult given Meisner's humility and love for music's pure form. He was not interested in the political games or commercial disputes that came with success. But in a band where creative control often equated to power, Meisner's wish for simplicity was a disadvantage. The cracks in the group's relationships deepened with every passing year, setting a volatile stage. The Eagles' first tour for their landmark album, Hotel California, showed rising tensions between band members. The combination of fame-related pressure and their constant performance schedule and the ongoing conflicts between band members created an atmosphere where both personal and work-associated conflicts would erupt. The band showed their fans a unified public front, while their backstage interactions operated under a much different reality. The main conflict started with the battle between band members who supported Take It to the Limit, while Meisner used the track to establish his musical identity and prove his dedication to the band. The nightly need to perform this challenging high vocal range reduced his physical abilities until he became unwell. Meisner's need to sing through his extreme fatigue and voice damage showed his dedication to work, but it proved he could only handle so much pressure until his health started to decline. The opposing visions of Frey and Henley about specific band matters created a situation which led to bad results for various people. The existing power differences between band members created situations which resulted in band breakups and permanently redirected Meisner's life journey. The long-standing tensions between two parties finally reached their peak moment, which showed how creative work leads to conflicts between artists with different egos. Meisner's silent strength proved to be a powerful force which connected with people who comprehended the difficulties involved in such conflicts. His personal experience showed how the rock star life creates situations where artists must choose between their core beliefs and business interests. With rising tensions placing unbearable strain on the band's unity, the 1977 tour would prove to be the crucible where everything came to a head. The 1977 tour breaking point. By 1977, the Eagles were soaring at the peak of their fame, fueled by the massive success of their album Hotel California. The world was captivated by their blend of rock and country, and their sold-out tours spanned the United States and Europe. For Randy Meisner, this period should have been a triumphant chapter, but behind the scenes, it was unraveling into something far darker. His health was deteriorating. Battling pneumonia and battling hoarseness, his voice began to suffer under relentless pressure. Despite this, the band's rigorous schedule and insistence on consistency left no room for mercy. Take It to the Limit was more than a song for Meisner. It was his defining anthem, showcasing his soaring vocal ability and emotional depth. Night after night, audiences demanded to hear him perform it live. However, by this point in the tour, the strain was palpable. Meisner's fatigue and vocal troubles made hitting those demanding high notes nearly impossible. He felt trapped between his love for the music and the physical limits of his voice, knowing that every performance chipped away at his well-being. The situation reached a critical tipping point during a concert in Knoxville, Tennessee. Asked to sing Take It to the Limit, Meisner refused, feeling he simply could not deliver the song justice that night. This act of defiance ignited fierce anger backstage, particularly from Glenn Frey, whose reputation for being ruthless became painfully evident. What started as sharp words quickly escalated into a heated argument. Frey blamed Meisner for disrupting the concert and failing the band, and emotions boiled over in a physical altercation. The fight, which Meisner usually remained quiet about, turned into a significant event in his life. The dispute extended beyond its immediate content because it demonstrated the point which had been building up through multiple years of increasing tension and complete exhaustion and continuous annoyance. Meisner reflected on that period because he experienced extreme exhaustion, which made him feel disconnected from everything except the requirements, which forced him to complete tasks he had no intention of doing while he lost his appreciation for music that used to bring him joy. His feeling of being excluded from the band, which he helped to establish, became more intense as time passed. The band faced musical performance obligations, which required them to work at double their regular schedule, while internal conflicts created an environment which ended up becoming unbearable. Meisner disclosed his financial situation to others in 1981 because he explained that staying with the Eagles would have earned him 3 times his current income, but he needed to leave because the band impacted his mental and physical wellness. After the fight with Frey, he decided to leave the band because he considered his mental health to be more important than any financial benefit. Meisner publicly announced his family visit as the reason for his departure from the organization, but the actual reason for his exit showed that he wanted to leave because people kept demanding more from him while respecting him less. The band continued their rise without him, propelled by new member Timothy B. Schmidty, the same musician who had replaced Meisner years earlier in Poco. Meisner's exit from the band created a difficult situation because it began a period of isolation which brought him uncertainty about his future. The band lost its essential element when he departed, which created major difficulties for Meisner. The musician, who had always preferred working outside the public eye, felt disturbed by the rejection he received from both the band and the music industry because he dedicated himself to making music according to his own preferences. The repercussions from that tour affected his life during the following years because they changed how he experienced both musical success and his relationship with celebrity. Despite the painful exit from the Eagles, Meisner's passion for music remained, leading him into a difficult, quieter chapter. Life after Eagles, solitude and struggles. After parting ways with the Eagles in 1977, Randy Meisner faced a stark reality, carving out a solo career in an industry that often forgets those who step away from the spotlight. In 1978, he released his self-titled debut album, an earnest attempt to establish himself as an independent artist. Although the album featured strong tracks like Hearts on Fire and Batman, it failed to replicate the commercial and critical success he had experienced with the Eagles. The public still tended to view him through the lens of his former band membership rather than as a solo talent. Throughout the 1980s, Meisner released more albums, but success remained elusive. He was not driven by a hunger for fame or power. Rather, his focus was on creating music true to his heart. This purity, however, didn't align well with the ruthless demands of the music market, and without the backing of a strong team like his former bandmates, he gradually faded from the mainstream scene. His quiet demeanor worked against him in an industry that often rewards self-promotion and competition. Meanwhile, the Eagles themselves parted ways in 1980, with each member taking separate paths. Glenn Frey and Don Henley went on to soar in their solo careers, while Joe Walsh maintained a prominent presence in rock music. Meisner, by contrast, withdrew more and more from public view. His fading presence was as much a reflection of personal choice as the industry's shifting tides. In 1994, the Eagles reunited for their Hell Foutery Hell Freezes Over tour, a much-celebrated comeback for the band. Notably absent was Meisner. When asked, He stated he never received an official invitation to join, fueling rumors and speculation. Some insiders suggested Meisner declined the offer over concerns about his health and emotional well-being. Whatever the reasons, his absence underscored a painful exclusion from a chapter he had helped create. The health of Meisner started to deteriorate during the early 2000s. He faced his inner struggles from bipolar disorder and severe alcohol addiction, which had persisted throughout his existence. After he lost his ability to perform on big stages, his life became more solitary because he chose to stay away from the music industry, which he had formerly brought to life. The struggles he faced created a strong emotional depiction of a man who fought between his previous experiences and his current challenges. A personal triumph happened during his challenging period when he wed Lana Ray Meisner in 1996. She became his essential source of assistance during their relationship. Their relationship experienced constant conflict. Friends described their home life as unstable because Meisner would drink excessively, which led to severe disputes between the couple. Medical supervision became mandatory for Meisner after his condition reached a dangerous level during that year. His battles became evident through his severe problems, which had a complete impact on every area of his existence. Lana Ray Meisner died from a gunshot wound in their home, which became the turning point for their relationship. The police determined that she accidentally shot herself while trying to retrieve a gun from a closet. But people continued to doubt the official explanation. Randy Meisner's departure from the glorious heights of the Eagles was not the end of his story, but it marked a somber turn, one that revealed how fame and friendship can wither beneath unspoken pain and lost opportunities. Don Henley's silence and tribute. Following Randy Meisner's passing in 2023, the world awaited words from those closest to him, especially Don Henley, who had shared many pivotal moments with him during the Eagles' rise. Yet, Henley remained silent initially, leaving fans and observers wondering about the emotional and personal complexities that might explain his silence. When Henley finally spoke, his remarks went far beyond a typical tribute. He acknowledged Meisner as an integral part of the Eagles, highlighting the unique vocal range that breathed life into classics like "Take It to the Limit." The tone was respectful, but hinted at layers of shared history long left unspoken. Henley's statement surprised many because it revealed a vulnerability rarely exposed. He recounted a private conversation with Meisner, where the latter expressed deep regret about his time in the band. Meisner reportedly told Henley he wished he had never joined the Eagles, expressing disdain for the pressures and lifestyle of superstardom. That glimpse behind the curtain painted Meisner not as a star, but as someone burdened by the very fame he helped create. This admission revealed the toll fame took on Meisner's spirit, how he struggled with being caught between public expectation and personal peace. Henley, in sharing this, offered an affectionate but honest portrayal of a man wrestling with inner conflict amid crushing external demands. Yet Henley did not delve into the band's internal struggles, theory of Meisner's removal, the 1977 tour tensions, or his later exclusion from reunions, leaving those wounds only partially exposed. He chose to examine Meisner's emotional state instead of researching the band disputes because he wanted to display deep admiration, but also showed his disappointment about Meisner. The band achieved success because the members had to endure personal sacrifices and relationships which became broken. The fans who listened to Henley revealed his honest truth about himself, and Henley discovered how their professional relationship between them brought both together for their job, yet their connection became interrupted by their work-related challenges. Music communities started to discuss the Henley public response delay, which included his statement about his opinion. The people who viewed it as overdue recognition believed that Meisner played a key role in the band while he faced various challenges. The people who read the text discovered hidden meaning because they understood that the extended period of silence had revealed everything about their personal conflicts, which remained unresolved. Henley chose to limit his discussion about the band's most negative times, which left multiple issues unresolved, because he wanted to demonstrate how these events affected him deeply. After Henley delivered his statement, other Eagles members started to remember their deceased friend. Joe Walsh paid tribute to Meisner because he recognized his exceptional vocal ability and musical gifts. But Timothy B. Schmidt, who succeeded Meisner, said that Randy Meisner made the band their greatest strength. The band and their supporters started to view Meisner as a significant figure in rock history because they experienced a collective moment of remembrance for him. The tribute movement, which began to honor Randy Meisner, brought new perspective on his musical legacy because he contributed two essential roles, which included his work as a backing musician and his strong vocal performances and artistic contributions. The people who witnessed his withdrawal from public life recognized that his essential work became more valuable when they understood the full extent of his contributions. The second round of public interest brought fresh understanding to a man whose modest nature concealed his remarkable abilities. The reassessment of Meisner's life and career compelled a broader reflection on his true impact. Legacy. Reassessed, Randy Meisner's legacy has long been overshadowed by the larger-than-life personas of other Eagles members, but the reflections following his death have prompted a powerful re-examination. Many now view him not just as a quiet bass player, but as a foundational architect of the band's sound and emotional core. His soaring vocals, especially on tracks like Take It to the Limit, remain timeless, evoking intense emotional responses even decades later. This renewed focus has brought overdue recognition to the depth and importance of his work. Fans and critics alike have begun to appreciate the subtlety of his musicianship. The blending of steady, understated bass lines with an uncanny ability to convey vulnerability through voice. His contributions went beyond performance. They shaped the mood and identity of the Eagles during their most influential years. Such recognition challenges earlier narratives that marginalized him in favor of the band's more dominant figures. This reassessment has also highlighted the cost of his relative obscurity in later years. Despite his key role, Meisner was excluded from the band's reunion tours and many milestone events, feeding the perception that he was pushed out rather than leaving on his own terms. His absence from these high-profile moments only deepened the sense of a forgotten genius, quietly sidelined by circumstances beyond his control. The revelations from Henley and others have reopened conversations about fairness and respect in collaborative creative work. Meisner's story stands as a cautionary tale about how even great artists can be lost amid industry politics and internal band dynamics. It underscores how talent alone does not guarantee lasting recognition or inclusion. Yet, the shifts in public perception have inspired a more compassionate understanding of Meisner's journey. A new generation of listeners and musicians are discovering his voice and story, finding in him both a symbol of unheralded genius and a reminder that artistic legacy is fragile and complex. His influence on country rock and harmonious vocals remains a beacon for many aspiring artists. The case of Meisner demonstrates that we should investigate complete biographical details which exist beyond his public recognition as an exceptional artist. His dedication toward his musical work, combined with his humble character, creates a strong contrast to the cutthroat environment which pervades the music industry. The band members who used to bear resentment toward Meisner now acknowledge his actual worth since they have modified their previous negative opinions about him. The process has enabled the band to recover some of its lost reputation, which results in an improved understanding of its internal relationships and disputes. The renewed experience of respect and admiration marks a new phase in which people define Randy Meisner's legacy. The bittersweet complexity of Meisner's legacy sets the stage for reflecting on the lasting meaning of his life and music. The enduring memory. Randy Meisner may not have always stood front and center, but his influence permeates the Eagles' music with a lasting, quiet power. His soulful bass lines and soaring falsetto served as the emotional heartbeat of many iconic songs, inviting listeners into moments of vulnerability and grandeur. Even decades after his departure, these performances continue to captivate audiences, proving that Meisner's artistry transcends time and trends. His legacy rests not on the volume of his presence, but on the depth of feeling he conveyed. Meisner's humility distinguished him in a music world often dominated by ego and flash. Unlike some of his contemporaries, he never sought the spotlight for personal glory. Instead, he let his music speak on his behalf, anchoring the Eagles' harmonies and lending a unique voice where it was most needed. This reserved approach earned him a special place in the hearts of fans who value sincerity over showmanship. The emotional resonance of songs like "Take It to the Limit" remains a testament to Meisner's ability to capture the human experience in sound. That soaring falsetto, filled with both power and fragility, symbolizes the fine line between artistic triumph and personal struggle. Meisner's performances continue to inspire musicians who see in him an example of authenticity and emotional courage. The Eagles' greatest hits showcase Meisner as their most frequently mentioned artist. The decreasing recognition of his contributions shows their development as essential elements of the band, which created its unique sound and achieved its musical accomplishments. He established himself as a vital part of the band because he developed rock music moments that became everlasting historical landmarks. Fame itself creates various hidden challenges which include health problems and social isolation and psychological issues. Meisner's personal challenges, which he fought in secret, give authentic human depth to his historical presence. The path to genius leads to isolation and suffering, which enables people to understand the musician better because they see his creative process behind the song. Meisner's fans continue to show their appreciation for him through his singing and playing abilities and his lifelong commitment to modesty and moral values. People deeply connect with his silent nobility because it makes his legacy last more than his musical achievements and his awards. His music creates a bridge to an enduring emotional state which connects listeners to a specific historical period. As the songs that carried him to stardom keep playing, so too does the quiet strength of a man who gave music his voice, his heart, and, through it all, a lasting legacy. Randy Meisner's journey was one of soaring highs and silent struggles, a testament to the complex path of an artist who shaped an era. His voice and story continue to inspire, reminding us why true talent often shines quietly, but leaves an unforgettable mark. If you appreciated this tribute, please like this video and subscribe for more stories behind the music. Quietly, but leaves an unforgettable mark. If you appreciated this tribute, please like this video and subscribe for more stories behind the music.